Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's James and this is my friend
Ashley.
And this evening we'd like to discuss the current situation around the pandemic, COVID-19, and we're here to discuss how we feel, in particular, the lockdown measures that have been put in place affect people in a general sense.
With it's about a third of the population
now. That's right.
Yeah. Has their whereabouts restricted, where they can go and what they can do.
Yeah.
And I think that in particular interests both of us, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because we started to consider how are people going to cope during this lockdown with mental health, and how they keep their mental health stable and they stay psychologically happy, and mentally happy and physically of a good way,
absolutely,
during this lockdown. What type of things, I mean, since you found out some of those facts, like the third of the population are now under lockdown, and a lot of all over the world people are in lockdown. What do you think would affect their mental health during the lockdown? How would it affect their mental health, this type of thing that's going on at the moment?
Well, I think fundamentally the biggest reality that a lot of people are experiencing is several-fold, really. So fundamentally we are social creatures, and throughout our lives we've created friendships, and obviously we have family too, and those social structures have been dismantled under the tier 3 lockdown. You cannot mix in another household. Pubs are closed. So people's social lives have suddenly, almost overnight, been taken away from them. If you're lucky enough to live with a family member, you're married, then to a degree you have company. It doesn't come without its problems, of course, because a lot of couples have been forced into a situation where they're both not working. It's a completely new experience, and there has been many instances of couples not surviving the lockdown, relationship breakdowns in that respect. If you're unfortunate enough to live by yourself, whether you're young, elderly, whatever your age range is, your social life is not there at all. So you and I both know somebody, don't we, who the mere thought of another national lockdown has petrified this person, because she feels that she may not see her friends. This person experiences voices, and seeing people is a distraction. There is also the reality of a lot of people find comfort in a routine, work, activities. You've got to remember, when the national lockdown was first started, we were all told we couldn't go out for more than an hour. So that restricted everything, So people were not working. Their activities outside the home were restricted to 1 hour. And for me, I worry that a large proportion of the population cannot cope with the fact they've lost their job, cannot cope with the fact they don't see their family, cannot cope with the fact that they've lost the reality where they can see their friends. Big concern. Also, you've got people who have run a small business all their life. Suddenly they find 3 months of lockdown, there's no money coming in, they've gone bust.
Yeah.
How does one cope with that? So there are so many layers of reasons why people would end up in a situation where they feel depressed, anxious. All of these horrible mental health realities.
I mean, it was only today I seen an interview on BBC with someone being interviewed about. It was more they were saying that they were on the furlough scheme and they were at home and they were saying how much can you do inside,
Yes.
before it starts to have.
You go a little bit crazy. Really.
Yeah, it has an effect on you, and yeah, she was just explaining that really how that had an effect on her.
Absolutely.
Staying in within those four walls, and what she was saying kind of makes you think. I mean, as we move into this more severe lockdown in certain areas in Britain, how, as you put it, all of those areas of their life start to cease up.
Yeah.
And there's tension out there with the way things are. Everyone is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And there's a noticeable, I'm hearing from a lot of sources that there's a noticeable feeling of tension out there.
Oh, I feel that.
with the state of the way things are around the country.
It's also very divisive as well, isn't it? What's been going on? Because we've got people who are conspiracy theorists who believe that this doesn't even exist. You've got people who are trying to enforce lockdown. Then you've got people who are resisting lockdown. It's divided opinion. Before we had Brexit, now we have COVID. They're actually the same thing because they're very divisive issues. My view is that, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I worry that the treatment, the cure, is actually fundamentally worse than the problem, i.e. the virus. I'm not sure it even stacks up scientifically either. So I've been thinking about this. When COVID first came here, I understand it was something new, right? We didn't know anything about it, right? So maybe you can understand why governments decided to take a precautionary measure. But you also have to realise you cannot constantly lock a country down, or region, or small area, because if you lock those areas down, or the country, you're also creating a whole load of social problems, massive social problems. People are turning to drink more, people are turning to drugs more, people are turning to all sorts of substances. Also, there's been a lot more incidents of abuse from people who live in an abusive relationship and they can't escape. You've then got people not getting treatment for cancer. and other health problems, because it's either these people are too scared to go to hospital in case they catch COVID, or the NHS is prioritising those with COVID over people who've got other health issues. And I wonder, what's it all about? You know, the issue we've got is also from a scientific point. If you lock the economy down, fair enough, you're suppressing the virus. The moment you open it up again, what's going to happen is proved what happened last time. The rate of infection goes up again. Until we have a vaccine, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to keep locking down, reopening, locking down, reopening? The economy will take probably decades to recover.
I mean, do you think the government have handled this situation correctly?
That's a complex question. I don't think it's as simple as saying yes or no. So I think the approach of trying to look at things in regions rather than a whole country, depending on the infection rate in that area, I understand that, because if you are in an area where there are low infection rates, it's not fair that you should be locked down. However, I still argue that I do not see the logic in locking any region down, because all that happens is the moment that those restrictions are lifted, the virus will just come back again. The fundamental problem that we have is that the track and trace system has been a complete failure.
Yeah.
If we could get to a situation where the track and trace system is effective, then I don't think any of these lockdowns would be necessary. And I don't think it's fair to necessarily blame the government, because this is a whole new scenario. And would anyone else have done any better? Probably not. But I do think that fundamentally the track and trace testing system has been a failure, because you need to know where the virus is, and I think that's been a monumental failure. And you know, the economy will take probably decades to recover from. You think how much debt we've racked up
over this during the. It's been about 10 months now since we went into lockdown.
Absolute eye-watering amounts of debt. Now, I'm not saying that money should not have been spent, but what's the argument for propping up businesses that were going to fail anyway? It's spending old money on bad, in my view, but anyway, I do also question, so for example, how many of these laws which are on the statute book with regard to COVID will be removed once COVID goes away? Because once laws are on the statute book, they remain there until someone says they either get reformed or removed. So all these laws have been passed by our system of democracy. So the MPs have voted, it's law. All of these new laws around COVID, they're law. And I wonder, will those laws be removed once COVID is under control? I don't have a crystal ball. I think I really worry about a lot of people, I really do, because I personally did not struggle in lockdown at all, because I live in a rural area. I live with my partner, we have a good relationship, it's harmonious. We were able to go out and enjoy the countryside. We are blessed in that neither my partner or I get bored of being at home. We always find something to do. So, to be quite honest with you, lockdown, it didn't trouble me, but I do see that if you were living in a town block in London, oh my God, I don't think I could survive that. No garden, no.
How did you find, even that being said, how did you find the experience of going shopping and having to put on a mask? And how did you feel about wearing the mask when you went shopping? Did that disturb you? Did it bother you?
No.
No.
But having said that, I did think about the science behind masks as well, because the science is flip-flopped all over the place about masks anyway. And I wonder whether the masks are just a way of making people feel a bit more secure about going out. Because there is an argument that if you're wearing a mask and you touch something at a restaurant, I don't think masks are foolproof at all. And Dr. Fauci in America, he's the chief scientist who advises the American government. At one point he said masks were almost pointless. And then recently he's saying the opposite. So there's my problem with any experts, scientific, a lot of them all disagree on things anyway. I don't believe that there is any, with science it's such a complex subject that scientists themselves disagree on the facts. So how are you and I supposed to manoeuvre our way through this pandemic, even if the scientists can't agree? Politicians disagree on how to deal with it. Scientists are not united in their approach. So some scientists have come up with the idea of herd immunity. So the idea basically is that you let the virus run through society and eventually everyone will become immune. The downside of that is that obviously people will die. But I think in any situation people will sadly die.
But what's your advice to round up now, to finalise?
Yeah.
What's your advice to anyone now within those areas that have been put on this tier 3 lockdown restriction? What is your advice to them?
I tell you one thing
on
I
a
would
mental
say.
health angle?
I tell you one thing I would say. Of course, yes, you need to keep informed about what's going on because the restrictions change all the time. However, I don't think it's healthy to look at the news too much at the moment.
No.
Because it's all very depressing. Find something that you haven't done in a long time that you thought you could never do. So a lot of people, they're so busy with their lives and they're stuck in the home and they suddenly think, oh, there's something that I wished I'd had the opportunity to do when I was so busy, but now I do. So it could be something as simple as, I don't know, repainting a room in your house, or some people might think, oh, I always wanted to write a book, or I wanted to buy some new plants for that, whatever. I think people's lives are so busy that there are certain things that, I suppose you could look at it like this. My father is now retired. And he said to me, there are so many things that I wish I'd done with my life. And now that I'm retired, I can do them. And I wonder whether if we were to reframe it and say, well, guess what? All right, I've got this time off work, I'm on furlough. This is just one example of a situation someone might be in. I've now got an opportunity to do those things that I didn't have the time to do. Could be anything, knit a jumper, whatever
any activity
excites you, you know.
Yeah.
Because there are things you can do in the home that perhaps you've never had time to do. And I think if you feel you can, that's a great way of kind of distracting yourself from this quite depressing time period.
Yeah. So that's one to remember. If you can find activities that you haven't done before, now is the time to explore them. Signing out, Ashley
And James, good night.
Night.